never thought that the happiest day of my daughter's life would become the most painful moment of my entire life. Tonight the hall was glowing with lights everywhere, soft music playing gently, and people laughing happily all around the place. More than 400 guests were dressed beautifully and had gathered together just to celebrate her wedding day, and me, I stood quietly in a simple suit holding back tears, because I had raised her completely alone. Every step she took, every success she achieved, every smile she wore was built only on my sacrifices and struggles. But then something happened, something that I will never forget for as long as I continue living in this world. Her father-in-law stood up, held the mic firmly, and looked directly at me with a strange and uncomfortable smile. It was not a kind smile at all. It was the type of smile that hides deep insult behind fake respect and pride. Then he said something that made the entire hall suddenly go silent and made everyone slowly turn toward me. Some people show up to big weddings pretending that they actually belong here, he said. With a soft laugh, people around started chuckling quietly. But I did not react at all, because I clearly knew he meant me. My hands slowly tightened, and my heart started racing faster than ever before inside my chest. In that moment, I had only two choices in front of me: either stay completely silent or stand up and face everything. And what I decided to do next in that very moment ended up changing everything forever for everyone present. Years ago, I was not standing inside a wedding hall, but instead outside a hospital room, completely alone, holding my newborn daughter carefully in my arms, while her mother walked away from us. Forever. There was no warning, no explanation. She simply left and disappeared, leaving me alone with everything. People around me told me that I could never raise a child alone, and that this situation would never work, but they did not understand something very important. I was not raising just a child, I was raising my whole world. I worked 2 jobs every day, sometimes even 3 jobs, just to make sure she had everything she needed. I skipped my own meals many times, so she could eat properly and stay healthy and strong. I wore the same old clothes for years, so she could have new ones and feel happy like other children. At night, when she finally slept peacefully, I would sit beside her quietly and watch her breathe, and I made a promise to myself that no matter what happened, will never let her feel incomplete, and I kept that promise through every hardship, every struggle, and every painful moment in life. She grew up strong, kind, intelligent, and became the kind of girl that everyone admired and respected deeply. Her teachers loved her very much, her friends trusted her completely, and she was always smiling brightly. And me, I stayed in the background, silently watching her shine, without ever asking for anything in return, because her happiness was always enough for me, and nothing else in this world ever mattered to me. Years passed quietly, and one day she came to me with a smile that I had never seen on her face before, that kind of smile, which cannot be hidden no matter how hard someone tries to hide it. She looked at me and said, "Baba, I want you to meet someone important in my life." I already understood what that meant, because every father knows that moment will come one day. I met the man she loved. He was polite, respectful, and came from a very wealthy and powerful family background. His father was a big businessman, the type of person people stand up for when he enters any room. From the very beginning, I could clearly feel the difference between their world and mine, their lifestyle, their way of speaking, their confidence. Everything was very different from mine, but my daughter was happy, and that was enough for me, or at least that is what I kept telling myself. The wedding planning started with luxury venues, expensive decorations, and high-class arrangements. Everywhere, everything was far beyond anything I had ever seen or imagined in my entire life, and slowly over time, I started noticing something that made me feel uncomfortable. Inside, I was present there physically, but I was not really included in any of the important decisions. Important conversations were happening around me, but no one ever asked for my opinion. I was being treated like just another guest, instead of being treated like her father. But I stayed completely silent because I did not want to create any problem on her special day, because at the end of the day, this was not about me, it was about her happiness and her future. Then finally, the wedding night arrived with a grand hall filled with lights, cameras, and hundreds of guests. I stood quietly to the side watching my daughter walk into the hall looking absolutely perfect. She looked like a dream, like something straight out of a beautiful story, and I felt incredibly proud. For a brief moment, I forgot all the pain, struggles, and loneliness that I had faced over the years, because in that moment I truly believed that I had done my job as a father successfully. But then suddenly everything started to change, in a way I had never expected. The music slowed down, people settled into their seats, and soft whispers filled the hall. Then the groom's father stood up confidently, and someone handed him the microphone. He did not need to raise his voice, because he was the type of man who controlled the room. Naturally, he smiled and began speaking calmly as the entire hall went completely silent. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is a very special night for our family," he said proudly. Everyone clapped and smiled as he looked at his son, and then toward my daughter. "My son has chosen very well," he continued, and more applause filled the hall once again. I stood quietly in the corner with my hands folded, trying to feel included in that moment. For a brief second, I actually felt proud and happy hearing those words being spoken. But then slowly, his eyes moved across the room and suddenly stopped directly on me. His smile changed slightly, not enough for others to notice, but enough for me to understand because I had spent my entire life learning how to read people and their true intentions, in big events like this. He continued, while pausing for dramatic effect. People leaned forward slightly, paying close attention to every word he was saying. You meet all kinds of people, he said. And a few guests laughed softly. At that moment, I felt something tighten deep inside my chest, as his words started to feel uncomfortable. Some people belong here, he said calmly, while maintaining his confident posture. And some people. He paused again, this time allowing the silence to grow heavier. Just show up, he finished. And louder laughter spread across the hall immediately. And then he looked directly at me without any doubt or hesitation. At that exact moment, I knew there was no confusion at all. He was talking about me. I felt heat rising on my face and my fingers slowly clenched tightly into my palms, but I forced myself to stay still, because I did not want to ruin my daughter's special day. He continued speaking, but now every single word felt like it was aimed directly at me. Status matters, he said confidently. Background matters and family name matters, as well. Each sentence felt like a sharp slap, hidden inside polite words spoken with fake elegance. And the worst part was that people were smiling, some even nodding, as if they agreed, as if I did not exist at all, as if I was completely invisible in that entire hall. I looked toward my daughter and saw that her smile had completely disappeared. Now her eyes were searching the room nervously until they finally met mine across the hall. And in that exact moment, I saw something in her eyes that I had never seen before. Fear. That single emotion broke something deep inside me. But I still remained silent, because I did not want to make things worse for her on the most important day of her life. The speech was not over yet, not even close to being finished at all. He adjusted his suit, took a sip of water, and continued speaking confidently. Let me also appreciate the effort from the bride's side, he said, with a slight smile. Light applause filled the hall, and I forced a small smile, hoping things would improve. Maybe this was the moment he would say something respectful, something normal. But once again, I was completely wrong about what was coming next. Raising a child alone must have been very difficult, he said while nodding slowly. The room became quiet again, but this time it was not respectful silence at all. It was the type of silence filled with curiosity and judgment from every direction. But let's be honest, he added with a soft chuckle that made everything worse. Effort does not equal class, he said, and a few shocked gasps were heard instantly. Some people looked down uncomfortably, while others looked directly at me without hesitation. And in that moment, everything inside me started to shake. Uncontrollably, memories from my past began flashing rapidly inside my mind. All the sleepless nights, all the hungry days, all the hard work and endless struggles, everything I had done just to give my daughter a better and more secure life. And this man standing in front of everyone reduced all of it to absolutely nothing. We are happy to welcome her into our family, he continued, as if nothing happened. And of course, he paused again, before looking directly at me once more. We will guide her into a better lifestyle, he finished confidently. That was the exact moment when I realized that a line had been crossed, and there was no going back from this point anymore. That moment, I knew something inside me had changed completely forever. The respect I had tried so hard to maintain was now slowly turning into silent anger. I looked at him carefully, trying to control my emotions as much as possible, because I did not want to create a scene in front of my daughter. But deep inside, I knew that what he said was not just a simple mistake. It was a direct insult, not only to me, but to everything I had sacrificed for years. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself while standing still in the corner. My mind kept repeating the same question over and over again. Should I stay silent, or should I finally speak up and defend myself? The guests were still watching the stage, waiting for the next moment of the event. But for me, everything had already stopped. I could no longer hear the music. All I could hear was my own heartbeat echoing inside my head. Then suddenly, I felt a soft hand holding mine gently from behind. I turned around and saw my daughter standing there looking at me with worried eyes. Baba, please, she whispered softly, her voice shaking slightly with emotion. I could see tears forming in her eyes as she tried to stay strong. That moment broke me more than any insult ever could, because no matter how strong I tried to be as a man, seeing my daughter in pain always destroyed every bit of strength I had. I slowly placed my hand on her head and gave her a small, reassuring smile. Don't worry, Beta, I said in a calm voice, trying to comfort her. Everything is fine. We are here to celebrate your happiness, not to fight. But even as I said those words, I knew something was not fine at all. The situation had already gone too far and could not be ignored anymore. Then the groom's father cleared his throat again, holding the microphone tightly. And this time his tone became even more serious than before. He looked around the hall as if he was about to deliver an important announcement. Everyone became quiet again, waiting for his next words, with full attention. We believe in strong traditions, he said firmly, while adjusting his posture. and we expect everyone joining our family to understand our values and standards. His words were carefully chosen, but carried a hidden message underneath. And that message was very clear to me. He was trying to show that his family was superior, and that others were somehow less important or less valuable than them. A few people in the audience nodded silently as if agreeing with him, while others just stayed quiet, not wanting to get involved in the situation. I felt my chest tightening again, but this time something was different. This was not just anger anymore, this was something deeper and heavier. This was the feeling of being disrespected after years of silent sacrifice. And now I could not hold it inside anymore. I gently released my daughter's hand and slowly stepped forward. Each step I took felt heavier than the last one. As all eyes began to follow me, people started whispering quietly, wondering what I was about to do. Even the music stopped completely as tension filled the entire hall. I stood there for a moment, looking directly at the man who insulted me. He looked back at me with a calm and confident expression, as if he had no idea that something was about to change, or maybe he thought I would remain silent just like before. But this time, I was not the same person anymore. This time, I had already crossed the line in my heart, and silence was no longer an option. I could choose. I slowly raised my hand, and the entire all became completely silent. Everyone stopped talking. Everyone stopped moving. Everyone was watching me. Even my daughter looked at me with wide eyes, unsure of what I was going to do. The groom's father looked slightly confused, but still maintained his confidence. Then I spoke for the first time that night in a calm but firm voice. "You are right," I said while looking directly at him. Every word I spoke echoed through the silent hall, clearly and powerfully. People who show up to events without understanding respect and dignity do not belong here. My words caused a sudden reaction throughout the entire room. Some guests gasped quietly, while others looked at each other in shock. The groom's father's expression changed slightly as he realized what was happening. I continued speaking without lowering my gaze even for a second. "I may not have your wealth," I said slowly, "but I have something far more valuable." My voice remained steady, but filled with deep emotion and truth. "I have raised my daughter alone with honesty, love, and sacrifice." Every word I spoke carried the weight of my entire life's struggle, and I could see the shift in the room as people started paying attention. "This is not about class or status," I said firmly. "This is about character and respect, something that cannot be bought with money." The room remained silent as my words settled deeply into everyone's minds. For the first time that night, I saw something change in his eyes, a slight drop in his confidence, a hint of discomfort, because he realized that I was not afraid anymore. And I was not going to stay silent. My daughter looked at me with tears in her eyes, but this time they were different. These were not tears of fear. These were tears of pride. She finally saw her father standing strong in front of the world, defending her dignity without hesitation or fear. And in that moment, I understood something very important. Sometimes silence protects others, but sometimes speaking up protects your own self-respect. And this was the moment I chose respect over silence. The entire hall was completely silent after my words. No one dared to speak. No one even moved from their place. It felt like time itself had stopped just to witness this moment. And for the first time, I could feel that my voice had power. The groom's father stood still, holding the microphone tightly in his hand. His confident smile had completely disappeared from his face. Now there was only silence, and a slight discomfort visible in his eyes, because he knew that the situation had turned in a direction he did not expect. He tried to smile again, but it was no longer natural. His voice came out softer this time, as he tried to respond well. He said slowly, "I was just expressing our family values." But his tone had already lost the authority it had before. I took a step closer without any fear in my heart. "If your values include disrespecting others, then I do not agree with them." My words were calm, but extremely firm and clear, and the hall once again became completely silent. People were now watching this moment very closely. Some guests looked impressed, while others looked shocked. My daughter stood behind me, holding her hands together tightly. Her eyes were filled with tears, but this time they were tears of pride. Then suddenly something unexpected happened. The groom slowly stepped forward from behind his father. Everyone turned their attention toward him immediately, because now the situation had become even more intense. He looked at me, and then looked at his own father for a moment. He stayed silent, as if thinking deeply. Then he took a deep breath and finally spoke. "Sir," he said respectfully, "I think you are misunderstanding something." But before he could continue, his father interrupted him quickly. "This is not your place to speak," he said firmly. But the groom did not stop this time. He looked directly at his father and spoke again. "Enough," he said calmly, but with authority. The entire hall gasped after hearing that one word. Even I was surprised by his sudden confidence, because this was the first time he stood against his own father. He continued speaking. "You taught me to respect everyone regardless of their background, and today you are doing the exact opposite of what you taught me." Silence filled the room again, but this time it was different. This silence carried respect instead of tension. The groom then turned toward me. "I want to apologize," He said sincerely, "For everything that was said tonight, I respect you for raising such a wonderful daughter." Hearing those words, something inside me softened, because at least someone understood the truth and acknowledged the struggle I had been through. My daughter slowly walked toward me and stood beside me. She held my arm tightly and looked at everyone with confidence. Her voice was soft, but clear when she spoke. "This man is my strength," she said proudly. "He is the reason I stand here today. He never left me alone, even when the world did." Her words hit me harder than anything else that night, because all my sacrifices were finally being seen and understood. And that was the only reward I ever needed. The groom's father stood there silently, without saying anything. His pride was broken in front of everyone, and for the first time he realized that respect cannot be forced. The event slowly continued, but the energy had completely changed. People were no longer laughing at me or judging me. Instead, they were looking at me with respect and admiration. Later that night, when everything was over, my daughter came to me with a small smile on her face. "Baba," she said softly, "I am proud of you." Those words meant more to me than anything in the world, because after years of struggle, I finally felt that my journey had been worth it. As I stood outside the hall looking at the night sky, I realized something very powerful. No matter how small you think you are, if you stand up for yourself with truth and courage, no one in this world can take your respect away. And in that moment, I understood that the real victory was not winning the argument. The real victory was earning respect without losing my dignity. And that was the night that changed everything forever.